All right. So we are moving into section 6, talking about operations and compositions. So it will take us a few days, probably 3 days, to get through this assignment or through this section. So we're just going to do a little bit of it each day. So today our focus is going to be on operations, so like adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. With these, the notation, a lot of times they'll be written like this, the f plus g and then the 0 here. All that means is you have to do f of 0 plus g of 0. Okay, what does f of 0 mean?
3x minus 4.
Yep, you go to the 3x minus 4 and you put in a 0 for the x. Okay, so that would give us a negative 4. G of 0 says you go to function g and plug in a 0 for the x. And that one gives me negative 1. So then negative 4 plus negative 1 is negative 5. So B, what's the operation on this one?
F of negative 2 times g of 2.
Okay, so if I go to F and plug in a negative 2, you get negative 6 minus 4 is negative 10. Go to G and plug in a negative 2. So 4 times 2 is 8, minus 1 is 7. And we get negative 7. Okay, so with those, I'm just giving you a number. You plug it into each of them and do whatever operation. Add, subtract, multiply, divide, whatever I'm asking you to do. Are those okay? I might ask you to do the same thing when it is written, or when your functions are represented from a graph or a table, so not just the equations. So let's see if we can try those. So the first thing I want to find, f minus g of 0. So that means you have to do f of 0 minus g of 0. The graphing ones seem to be the ones that people have the most trouble with. When I say f of 0, what does that mean?
X is equal to.
Find when the x is equal to 0. Function f, that's the upside down parabola, so that's this point right here. So that's when x is 0. Tell me the y value there. 4 minus g of 0. So when the x is 0, the y value is 0. And 4 minus 0 is 4. Second one, f of negative 2 divided by g of negative 2. So when x is negative 2, the y value of f is divided by the
X is negative 2?
f is a parabola. So when x is negative 2, you're right here on the parabola. So that y value is 0. G of negative 2, so on the absolute value, the y value is 2. And 0 divided by 2 is 0. Let's do it from the table. How do we find f of 0?
X is 0.
Look, when the x is 0, the y value of f is negative 1 minus g of 0 is 4. So negative 1 minus 4 2 divided by g of -2. So when x is -2, the y value of f is divided by the y value of g. Can you do -5 divided by 0? No, so that's just undefined. Those okay? Why don't you guys take a second and try this one? So it's another graphing one. See if you can figure out what those would be. So the first one. The x is -2. So when x is -2, the y value of f is minus. Do we have a g here? So what do you think my final answer would be if the graph doesn't exist?
Just -3. No solution.
It's actually going to be a no solution. If one of the graphs doesn't exist there, the whole thing turns out to be no solution. B, at +1. So f of 1, when my x is 1, the y value of f is
3.
times the y value of g,
1.
and 3 times 1 is 3. C, f divided by g of 0. So when x is 0, the y value of f is 1 divided by the y value of g,
0.
and we can't divide by 0, so that one turned out to be undefined as well. So both graphs have to exist there for you to be able to do your operation. Questions on that one? So let's try it when I don't have any numbers to plug in. So when I'm just looking at these functions. So f minus g of x. What that means is we take f of x, we subtract g of x. Right, what is f of x?
88.
Minus. What is g of x?
X plus 4. I know.
Alright, what would we do here?
Subtract like solution.
So we could run that negative through so we can combine like terms. So 3x plus negative x will be a positive 2x. Negative 5 plus negative 4 is negative 9. So 2x minus 9. B. F times g of x. So we just do f of x, multiply that with g of x. So f is 3x minus 5. G is x plus 4. What would we do here?
4.
So we get 3x squared plus 12x minus 5x plus a 7x minus 20. C. What would we do there? We're just doing f of x divided by g of x. So f is 3x minus 5 divided by g, which is x plus 4. If they are, if you have like 8 over 4, I expect you to divide them. If something like this, you just leave it as that fraction. Okay, the other thing I asked for on these was the domain. So let's go back. And look at A. Our final answer, 2x minus 9. We talked about domains yesterday. What are the two things I have to worry about?
Fractions and radicals.
Fractions and even radicals. Do we have either?
No.
So what's the domain?
Negative, infinity, or positive.
B. We still don't have any fractions, still don't have any radicals, so the domain is the same. Okay, on C, this time I have a fraction. What was our rule with a fraction?
It can't.
The denominator cannot be 0. So x cannot be negative 4. So my domain is everything except negative 4. So negative infinity to negative 4, and negative 4 to positive infinity. Any questions on that? So sometimes we encounter an expression that looks like this. It's called a difference quotient. It has a lot of uses, like in calculus, but we're not worried about that. All we're worried about is, can we use functions to evaluate this? So it's f of x plus h minus f of x all over h. If I ask you to do this, I'm not just going to say find the difference quotient. I will tell you, I want you to do this, this, and this. I'll break it into steps. So the first thing I would ask is find f of x plus h. Second step, f of x plus h minus f of x. And then third step would be the whole thing. Because I'm not testing if you know what a difference quotient is. I just want to see, can you deal with the functions? So this would always be given to you. You just have to be able to evaluate them. So let's see if we can try that. If I want the difference quotient for f of x equals 2x minus 3. So the first thing we're going to do, f of x plus h. Alright, if I said find f of 5, what would you do?
Plug x in the
Plug 5 in for x. So when I say find f of x plus h, I'm saying you go to your equation and you replace the x with x plus h. So I'm not giving you a number to plug in, I'm giving you an expression. Really, all I could do at this point would be to distribute my 2. So we get 2x plus 2h minus 3, but that's it. That's as far as I can go. Part B. F of x plus h minus f of x. We just found f of x plus h. That was our answer to the previous problem. So f of x plus h is the 2x plus 2h minus 3. I'm just carrying that answer down. Minus, what is f of x?
2x minus 3.
So, make sure you're with me. The first thing we found was f of x plus h. We got that, so I replaced my f of x plus h with that thing. Minus f of x, which was the original problem, the 2x minus 3. What would we do now? So 2x and negative 2x would drop out. We have a 2h, negative 3 and positive 3 cancel. So that one just turns into a 2h. Part C. F of x plus h minus f of x. That's what we just found on part B. What did we get for our answer there? So it's 2h divided by h, which gives me 2. On these problems, part A will be the longest step usually. Parts B and C, things should start disappearing. Things should cancel out when you get to those. Did I lose anybody on that one? Let's try another. So my function is negative 2x squared. So f of x plus h says you go to this, we replace the x with x plus h. How do you square that?
You would just square it.
You actually do it over. Yeah, it means x plus h times x plus h, so you have to FOIL it. We have negative 2 x squared plus xh and plus xh will be 2xh plus h squared. So I can distribute my negative 2. So I get negative 2x squared minus 4xh minus 2h squared. Part B. F of x plus h minus f of x. What is f of x plus h?
What we just found.
So we carry down that answer. Minus, what is f of x?
Negative 2x squared.
The original. So if we minus a negative would be plus. So when we combine like terms, the negative 2x squared and positive 2x squared cancel. So negative 4xh minus 2h squared.
God bless you.
Part C. What would we do?
You would divide negative 4xh minus 2h squared by h.
Right. F of x plus h minus f of x, that's the answer we just worked out in part B. So we take the answer from part B divided by h. Okay. What do both terms on top have? Okay, if I took out an h, then what could I do with the h on the denominator? We can cancel those. So we get negative 4x minus 2h. Alright, so we can see like the first step, that one was the ugly part because we had to FOIL. But then once you get to part B, things start subtracting away. Part C, you should always be able to cancel an
Do
h.
you have to take the GCF out?
As long as you take an h out of each term, that's okay.
Okay.
Other questions? Alright, let's try one more. You guys want to try this one on your own or do you want to do it together? Okay, take a second and see how far you can get on your own. Let's check our part A. Okay, x plus h squared. That means you have two of them, and you have to FOIL. So you have 3 times, if you FOIL that, you get x squared plus xh and plus xh would be 2xh plus h squared. Okay, this one if I distribute my negative 2 minus 2x minus 2h plus 4. So then if I distribute this 3, we should get 3x squared plus 6xh plus 3h squared minus 2x minus 2h plus 4. Try to finish it from there. If you made a mistake, fix that, see if you can do the other two parts. So part B, f of x plus h is the answer we just got done with. Minus f of x is the original. So if we distribute the negative, and the 3x squareds cancel, 2x cancels, and 4 cancels. So we get 6xh plus 3h squared minus 2h. Part C, f of x plus h minus f of x, that's the answer we just got out. Divided by h. So you could take an h out of everything on top. Those h's cancel, and we get 6x plus 3h minus 2. Any questions on that one? It's a lot of work, but it's just evaluating functions. So plugging things in and then simplifying. All right, the last thing I want to do today, I'm just going to introduce compositions. We may do one example and then we'll stop and pick up with those tomorrow. So that will be our final piece. So a composition can be written a couple different ways. You might see it with a little circle or with multiple parentheses. And so a composition is a way of telling you you are going to evaluate multiple times. So you're going to take a number, you plug it into a function, get an answer. You take that answer and put it into the next function. When we're working on these, we always work from the inside out. So first I would take x, put it into function g, take that answer, put it into function f. The domains of these are a little more complicated. We're not going to actually talk about the domains until probably, what is it, Tuesday? So Thursday, we'll focus on the domains. So I'm not going to talk about that yet. So today we're just going to do one example with these, and then we'll look at more tomorrow. So if I gave you two functions, and I asked for f composed with g of 1. Another way that might be written is f of g of 1. And you always work inside out. So the first thing I'm going to do is g of 1. If you put 1 into function g, what do you get? 4. So now we need to find f of 4. So if I put 4 into function f, 4 squared, 16, 32, minus 3, 20. Does order matter with these? Yeah. Let's illustrate that here. If I flipped it and said g of f of 1. So we start on the inside, so I have f of 1. So if I put a 1 into function f, what do we get out?
-1.
Negative 1. So you only have g of negative 1. You put a -1 into G, you get -4. So very different answers. We have to be careful of the order on this. It's also possible to do the composition with the same function. You don't have to be putting it into different ones. So if I ask for f composed with f of -2. If you put a -2 into function f, so -2 squared is 4 times 2 minus 3, so I get 5. Now I plug 5 into f. So 5 squared is 25 times 2 is 50 minus 3 is 47. Last one, G composed with G of -1. So if you put -1 into G, what do you get out? And I have to put -4 into G, and we get -60. Any questions there? So, there is a Math Excel assignment open. You'll notice this assignment is not due until Friday because it's one assignment for the entire section. You could probably do questions 1 through 10 now. Some of them have multiple parts, so if you don't get all 10 done, that's okay. It's not due until Friday, but go ahead and start working now and let me know if you have any questions.